Living in the country is definitely not without its challenges. But I grew up in this area, and so I learned a lot of things on how to figure stuff out when you didn't have what you needed, as far as maybe the power went out or the water quit working, or all of those things that we consider necessities nowadays. So, in this video, I'm going to share with you the reality of country life, even though I love it. The wind is picking up, it's blowing all of the leaves off of the trees, and winter is coming. And in the country, we are preparing for it. It is not one of my favorite times of the year. Welcome to my little corner of the world here in rural Kansas. I'm an early retiree. My name is Bonita, and I've been retired for a year now. I grew up in this area. I moved away a couple of times, and I'm back here now living out my simple retirement here in rural Kansas. I have spent the winter in Texas last year in my RV. I plan to do that again this year because winter is not my favorite time of the year. Growing up in farmhouses, growing up in the brutal winters that we have out here has never been my favorite time of the year. It's cold, it's drafty, and there are lots of things that can go wrong when you live in the middle of nowhere during the winter. That is why those of us that live in the country always have a well-stocked pantry. Just in case we get snowed in, we get iced in, we still have food and we can get by for many, many days or longer if we need to. I always insist on having a propane-powered oven and stove, even though it has an electric igniter. When you turn it on, if there is no power, I can use a stick match to light this and we can still cook. I never have an electric stove because then we just wouldn't be able to cook if we didn't have power. I also insist on having a propane stove. No central heat and air here because if the power goes out, we still have heat. We had an ice storm here several years ago, and we had no power for 4.5 days. We were iced in because they do not clean off the highway by our house. They leave it till last, till they've done all of the highways, and sometimes done all of the highways again and again, because there's such few people that live out on this stretch of highway that we are not considered a priority. So we can get iced in. There's been times that I would get to work and then I had a lot of trouble getting home. At one time, my husband and I were riding together, and I picked him up at his work, and then we had another hour drive in clear weather to get home. It took us much longer than that. But I had a child still at home that was around 12 years old, and I needed to get home to him, and I was not going to not make it home to him. So the last 7 miles, I told my husband, grab on to that handle and just be quiet because I'm going to floor this and we are going to get home. The snow was about half as high as my car on the highway to get home. And I literally just plowed my way through it, through this massive amount of snow. I never was even on the highway. I was just kind of going on top of this huge mound of snow. And I knew if I let off the gas, we would be stopped and that would be it. We made it home no problem, but there was a rock in the snow somewhere that flew up and hit my oil pan and ended up making a hole in it that I had to get repaired. But we made it home, thank God. No one was traveling this road. We could have been stranded there, and it would have been very difficult to ever try to make it home that last 7 or 8 miles. I've had that happen coming from the other direction where they literally closed my highway, but I was coming home from work and I needed to get home to my family. I had gone off of the road even, and I got picked up by chance by my dad and my stepmother that happened to be behind me when I went off the road and got stuck in a snow mound. And when we started to come back that last 7 miles, you couldn't see where the road was. And my stepmom was trying to drive in her 70s. There were two tracks that she was trying to stay in. There was a semi coming at us, and my dad said, "He's bigger than you are. Stay in your tracks. Let him go around. He has bigger tires." And so that's what happened, and we made it home. But there has been so many stories like that where it was really, really difficult once I got to work to get back home. In that instance, my car even had to be left in that snow mound for about 3 days before we could even get back to try to get it out. So there's so many stories like that when you live in the country. It's not all rainbows and birds and peace and quiet. A lot of that is true in the spring, in the summer, in the fall, but the winters can be brutal. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to retire in the winter to a warmer climate. I have a lot of pain in the winter time, and I have friends that are older than me and a lot of people that retire and stay in this area even though they've lived here their entire life. A lot of them even have wood stoves and have to cut their wood. Luckily, we don't have that. I don't think we could physically do it, but I have some friends older than me that are still having to cut their own firewood. So it can be a hard life. When we were stranded out here about 4.5 days during that ice storm, I got a call from the senior center that was about 7 miles from us. And they said, "If you can get here, we have a hot meal waiting." But I told them hot meals and food were not our problem. We didn't have any water. When we don't have electricity in the country and we have our own well, it requires electricity to pump water, and we didn't have any water to flush our toilets, to shower, but we did have drinking water that we had stored back, but we didn't want to waste that to use it to flush toilets. And you couldn't wash dishes, none of those things. If you needed water to boil pasta, you would be risking using your drinking water. So water can be an issue, and that's one of the reasons that we refill water jugs, and we keep anywhere from 12 to 16 gallons of water at all times here to make sure that we have water that we need in case we don't have water. We've had times our water system has broken down. About a month or two before I retired, we had no water for about 2.5 weeks because we got roots in our water system, and it required us getting repairmen, and it cost over $5,000 to get our well back running. Before that, about 15 years before that, I had to have a new water pump that was put in that was a submergible, because every time it got this cold, our water would freeze up and we didn't have any water. And I got this submergible pump that goes under the ground, and then it wouldn't freeze. So that stopped that problem. But we have to have electricity to pump water. So in the times that we don't have water, we use the water that we've hauled in. We take those jugs every day and we refill them. There is a hydrant in that town that I told you about, and we can refill our water jugs there. There is a county lake that's like 25 miles from here. We've gone there before when we've had no water to shower. So we have to make allowances for not having the services that we need at times. Then there has been the fun times that we have a non-working toilet in the country. Many things can cause this. This house was built before there was indoor plumbing. So when they did put in indoor plumbing, there were sewer lines that were made, and those over time had broken down, and we were unable to flush our toilet. And when we dug all of those up, we saw that they had collapsed and they would not let any type of sewage go through. The septic tank had fallen in and collapsed as well. So we had to get an engineer out here to be able to map out and get approvals for us to get a sewer lagoon out in our pasture. We got the sewer lagoon put in, but we have a lot of natural streams and springs on this property, which is why I have two ponds that I've showed you. Those are all from natural springs. And that was preventing our toilet from flushing even once we got the lagoon put in, because rainwater and natural springs were filling up the lagoon and we couldn't even flush because it was always full of liquid that we didn't even produce. So we had to then have them come out and put a liner in the lagoon so that it wouldn't absorb all of the spring water and be full all of the time. And that was rather costly as well. So being off grid and being in the country and making all of these things where they operate and you can survive out here in the country, it can be tough and it can be expensive at times, but they're necessary. So if you want to be able to do this, keep in mind that it's not always as easy and as simple as it looks, but it's still the best life ever. There is wildlife out here. We have possums, skunks, armadillos, deer. We have snakes, which I absolutely cannot stand. We have mice that will try to move in when the winter starts coming. So we've had a couple of those lately. The cats have been going after them, so they're doing their job. And when I came out of the shower the other day onto the back porch, there were two cats that had a baby snake cornered. And I was yelling. Thank God my husband went in late that day. I said, "There's a snake, there's a snake." He came back. The cats had it cornered. I said, "Put the broom on top of him, hold him down, push him into the dustpan, I'll open the door." Well, he tried to do that. It didn't, it wasn't working. And he finally said, "I need for you to go in the other room because I'm going to have to pick him up." Well, I can't bear to see that. So I went in the other room and we got it taken care of. That is a rare occurrence. That has hardly ever happened since I lived out here. I did have one summer that I had 3 baby snakes that got into the house. And that was a horrible summer. But other than that, and this last time, that's never happened before. So I don't want to romanticize country living. It can have its rough edges. I do like to keep an assortment of oil lanterns for when the power goes out. These are so much safer than candles and they don't have the aroma, so they're much better on allergies. And I love having my farm animals out here. Brownie comes to visit when I'm hanging clothes on the line, and he always is looking forward to getting his donkey treats. Probably the worst part about living out here is trying to get any sort of repairman to come out here. Even the guy that hooked up my oven recently to propane said he is retiring. I don't know what we will do after that. He did give me his personal number and say, "I will come out probably after I retire if you give me a call and you need something simple." But trying to get anyone out here for sewer work, well work, remodeling, anything like that is very, very tough. I probably will be looking at saving money to replace my worst windows this next year in 2025. That's one of the things that I really want to do. This house has the original windows in it. A lot of the windowsills are rotting out and getting in really bad shape. They still have those old rope pulleys. They're not very weather resistant. They have thin glass in them. So I probably will be looking at doing that to try to help with just keeping the home as airtight and as warm as possible. This house gets really, really cold in the winter. It's not unusual for our living room to be in the 50s and like this office to even be colder than that because the propane heater is in the living room. It doesn't have a blower fan on it or any electricity hooked to it. So it basically heats right where it's at. Sometimes we will put a fan in front of it to try to circulate the air. A lot of times I will use my cook stove in the kitchen to try to heat this half of the house and keep the pipes from freezing, like in the kitchen sink and hopefully in the bathroom and the back porch area where my washer and dryer are. The washer will still freeze from time to time. We do keep a space heater in the winter in the bathroom for when people shower because it can be so cold in there you don't want to shower. And then we also keep a small little radiator type heater in our bedroom upstairs that basically just keeps the chill down. It doesn't make it warm. We have a heated mattress pad that we use. I grew up with electric blankets. Honestly, I like those better. I feel like the electric mattress pad doesn't really get warm until you lay on it for quite a while. And I remember growing up in a home with no heat in the bedroom as well. We didn't even have a space heater in my bedroom growing up. Mom would put so many blankets on me, I couldn't even roll over. They were so heavy. But we had an electric blanket, and you would turn it on about 30 minutes before you went to bed. And then when you went to bed, it was nice and warm, and you just stayed under there. But if your nose stuck out, you could see your breath. So I am used to growing up and living like this. I can't say that I love the winters though. That's one thing I really, really don't like about living out here. And that's why I'm going to be going to winter in Texas after the holidays and take you all with me while I'm living in my RV in a warmer climate. I hope you will all follow along to my early simple retirement for tips and tricks on how to save money. I appreciate you all so very much, and thanks for watching today.